Now our next design was one that Annie sent in, and Annie's little note, I love this. I love the fact that she actually wrote it on her image. Mags, I had so much fun with this colouring blending. I know it was probably not what you had in mind, but it was fun mixing colours, combinations for different looks. Thanks for opening my mind to a new approach to digitising. And then she put, forever grateful, Annie. Thank you, Annie. Okay. Let's just close that. Let's look at Annie's image. And it's quite a strong one. You've got this beautiful graduation from magenta down to about here, when a little bit of gold starts creeping in. And we come down further and you get, perhaps not gold, but a sort of pinkish orange down into a very vaguely lilac colour. Then you get this strip of land on the horizon. And cutting through that strip of land, this really strong shape of the tree. And then we get what at first I thought was water. It is water, but it's frozen. So I understand now why she called it, I think it was Cold Day. Yeah, Cold Winter. This looks like ice floes with little bits of water in between. And there's a jetty. Now we're going to look at the design. The first thing, there's no jetty. What Annie has done instead is she's given us a counterbalance to this tree, and it's a lighthouse. It doesn't look much there, does it? In fact, it looks a wee bit wispy, and then you look at it in the stitch out. There's nothing wispy about it, that is there. It's got solidity. I'm going to go back to Studio, and I want to show you, for the little branches she's used a motif run that's inside of Embird. I can't remember if it's called Pine Needles or... I know which one it is, and it works beautifully. Okay, Annie, now, I've mentioned in the other videos about using things like chopped up threads, wool that you've teased out, scraps of fabric. There's another thing, Angelina, I'll look it up later, which you can arrange on your fabric using a little bit of spray adhesive, plonking it on where you want it, putting some topping over it, and then stitching it into place. And you don't need an awful lot of stitches to get it into place. And then when your topping is removed, that gives you a sort of 3D appearance. But the whole design, very simple. She's used graduating fill. I just want to go to Image, Background Filters, and just hide the background. There we go. Now you can see more clearly her background, her graduated fill. And she's used the stripes. That's what this is. In MBX Easy Design, that's our parallel contour fill tool. In Embird, it's, let's click on here. Okay, we won't click on you, we will click on you, and we will go to parameters. There it is. Strips. Number, that's number of strips that it will put into that area, is 9. There's one layer of it, and its maximum length is 2 millimeters. So let's just tell that OK. And it works, and it's loose density. We go to 3D. There it is. OK, Annie, another thing you can do, because loose density layers for colour washing, I use it as a very free-form way of digitising. That's why I've not really gone into it too greatly with the group before. We have done loose density fills before. The bottle was one. Then we had I set a motif, or I set a design. You were all given a choice of so many designs. You did one where you made the chicken foot motif run line, and you used loose densities and you used the strips as well. If you remember, I made a comment about I loved the way you had created pickled onions as part of your design. They weren't pickled onions, they're just the striping on the oval shape that you created reminded me of what a pickled onion looked like. But in something like this now, one of the things we do in free motion embroidery, if we're doing something like a tree, we will lay this down in thick wool, which has been opened up, teased apart, and then place it down and just couch it with a loose density zigzag. Just about everything that can be done in free motion can be done in a digitizing program. It takes that little bit longer because you've got to work it out and you've got to make certain that you know where the center of a design is and all the rest of it. But even that's not difficult anymore. You know where your hoop sits on your machine, and on most modern machines now, the needle, when you first hoop up, sits over the center point of your hoop. So you just put a little mark on your stabilizer to say that's the center of my design. You lay over your paper template, find out where your center dot is. If the design is too big, you reduce it inside of your digitizing program. If you're using Embed as you are, ask Embed to reduce it to scale. It does it for you. And you can come up with some beautiful freeform. When I say freeform, let's say for instance that we're going to make a hydrangea. I'm going off on a tangent here again, but it's one I want people to realize they can use. Too many windows open. Okay. So let's say you want to do something like this, or these. It's easier with a drawing. You have the coloured photograph to give you the colour guides. You then cut out your flowers of fabric, and you've got a drawing. You put a little cross in the centre of each flower. You let the machine stitch the little crosses. Then you carefully put your little flowers with the centres over the crosses, and you use a little bit of spray adhesive or a teeny bit, and it's got to be a teeny bit, the glue sticks, the fabric glue sticks, and just put a touch on the back, press these onto your fabric, put it back onto your machine, and you redo the locking stitch in the centre of each flower. If you're worried about the fabric flopping over, before you put it back onto the machine, lay a layer of topping over the top. And you end up with a 3D effect. It's quick, it's simple, or you can do what a gentleman here in UK does. Personally, I don't like it, but people do go crazy for it. You just do very open spaced zigzagging all over it, and that holds them all in place. And I've chosen a hydrangea because it's one of the easier shapes to cut out, but you can do it with just about any flower. You see this? Okay, let me put it another way. Some of them are 3 petal, some of them are 4 petal. All these little tight unopened buds. You can sit and sew beads on afterwards if you want, or you use clumps of candle wick. Okay, let's close that. But you can use, as I say, wool or embroidery frost, hand embroidery frost, or the wool embroidery threads, and just lay them on. Spray first with a little bit of 505 quilter spray. Lay your wool over where you want all your branches. Put the film on top, and then do the open zigzag to hold them all in place. It's not quite as free as free motion, but it's nearly as free. But you do have to be disciplined about where you're going to actually put things. You know, it's no use you throwing a piece of wool down and going, oh, that's nice, I'll do that, and then digitizing your open zigzag an inch away from it, because of course it's not going to work. So that's where the discipline comes in, making certain that things go exactly where you want them to go. And then I think it's Angelina. Here we go, I'm deviating again. But it's not really deviating, because I think we tend to forget, and we think machine embroidery is just about doing fills and motifs. Angelina. No, I don't want you, I want Angelina. Angelina fibre. There we go. Images for Angelina fibres. That's it. And this is it being used. On tulle. And you can see here it's being mixed with metallic thread. And then it's put between sheets of water-soluble film and stitched. This is Angelina as well, and that comes sort of pre-pressed. It's not the same as Mylar. This is a definite fibre. Here you can see it's been used to sit something on top of. It's got 1,000,001 uses. Here it is. Here it's been used in free motion. I just saw one where they looks though they made a tree. There we go. Now, people think you can only do this in free motion. No. You can do it with your digitizing software. You do have to pay heed to where you're actually going to have it, where you need to stitch over. It's a lot of fun. And at first it's a wee bit hit and miss, but what the heck, it's a more free-form way of doing things. So that's Angelina, and that's what you can tease out to make the appearance of clumps of leaves, or little branches on trees. Right, I'm going to come out of there. So as you've got the effect that you've got more there than there is. Also works for clouds. Now I know I didn't tell any of you about this stuff beforehand. My reasoning was quite simple. I didn't want you rushing out, spending loads of money on stuff you're never going to use. And you need to experiment with all these various things. Some of you will take to it like a duck takes to water. Some of you will hate it. Because we're all different. We all have a different perspective on how things look. So Annie, I like what you've done in your design. I particularly like the fact that you put the lighthouse in and it lent a balance to this. It brings the eye immediately to the centre of the picture. So congratulations, sweetheart. I think you've made a nice job on that. Okay, now I've got to move on, so I'm going to finish this here. Oh, one more look at your stitch out, and there it is. Right. I'll see you all in the next video.